Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
It can be lonely at the top. We all know what it's like to lead and own a business and wanting to scale, but finding yourself at a glass ceiling. That is where the power of collaboration and connection comes in. Hi, I'm Natasha Milani. I'm an expert at helping businesses and business owners harness the power of collaboration to connect, scale and grow. I am passionate about collaboration. I believe that no one executes alone. We all do better when we do it together. Welcome to this Power of Collaboration podcast. It's wonderful to have you here. I hope you get the inspiration and information you need to harness the power of collaboration to break through your glass ceilings. Today, we're talking to Sharon Ferrier of Persuasive Presentations. Welcome, Sharon.
Hello, thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
It's wonderful to have you here. You've got a wonderful energy that you bring with you, Sharon. So I can already feel it in the room on this wet and wintry day outside.
Oh, look, I love wet and winter because it means that we can just eat crumpets and hunker down. It's great.
Well, that's a good segue, Sharon.
Crumpets.
Crumpets, yes. On your website, it says that the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning is what you call the click, and I thought this was awesome. It's the sound you hear when someone you are speaking to finally gets it. I want to flesh out a little bit more today about your expertise in presentations and networking. For me, collaboration is about trust. It's about relationships, networking, collaboration, camaraderie, and I'm sure you've got some great tips for us. So let's just start with getting a bit of background on Sharon.
A bit of background. Okay, well, look, this is interesting because on my website I say, here's what I think, and I say if you want to read my formal bio, go to LinkedIn, you can read it all about there. But I want to rewrite my bio and say, actually, I don't do anything, but my clients do great stuff. So I help empower people to be persuasive communicators, and that's pretty much it. And I've been doing it for 20 years now, and I really love it. And that click that I talked about is when you have somebody that is lacking confidence and they don't know how to express this, how to move people to action, and then it all falls into place and you see them light up, and I love doing that. But when it comes to the networking side of things, it's people buy from people that they like, know and trust. And this is a very old idiom that's been around for ages, but it's so true that we buy from people buy from people that they like, know and trust. And I believe we sell three things. We sell our organisation, we sell a product or service, and most importantly, we sell ourselves. And that's where networking is. And none of us are islands. We can't achieve anything by ourselves. We do need to collaborate and work with other people.
Yeah, it's so true. And relationships, and you talk about the fact that we sell ourselves, and that takes a bit of confidence, a bit of self-confidence.
Yeah.
So can we just touch on that? Because I think collaboration does require us to believe in ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And the older I get, and I'm sounding like such a mum now, but the older I get, the more I realise that we all have our own superpowers. And it's interesting because I was working with some researchers just this week actually, and they were going, oh, but I'm not an expert. And I'm going, well, yes, you are. You've got expert knowledge in this area. You're not an expert in everything. None of us. There's only one person that's an expert in everything, and that's Suri. But the rest of us, we're experts in a particular field. So when I look at businesses, the arrogant person says, yes, I'm going to do it all, be it all, and whereas the smart person goes, you know what, here's my area of expertise. This is my superpower, and I need to pull other people together. And Richard Branson was famous for saying, I'm dyslexic. I'm never going to get my head around this bit here, but I have people that I trust that I can work with that will help me fill in those gaps. And this is where diversity comes in. This is where really knowing who you are and what you bring to the table and saying, you know what, this is me, this is my superpower, and I believe we've all got them. You know, a lot of people go, oh, but I don't have qualifications, or I don't have a degree. No, but you're the person to do this bit here.
I totally agree. And it's vulnerability, which is a key word, I think, in the SA leaders language, and authenticity. And I asked myself, what is my expertise? And it came down to, after reading The Tipping Point from Malcolm Gladwell, what a great book.
Yep.
I decided that I was a connector and I was passionate about it, because passion is also an important element. So what would you say to someone, Sharon, who is out there thinking, what's my expertise, what's my passion, and how do they share that or communicate that with others?
Yeah, good question. And people sometimes struggle with this. And I say to them, okay, so what do people come to you for? What do people go, that's Natasha. Natasha is that person that does this. What do people come to you for? What do you do that other people kind of go, oh my God, that's so hard? And you go, it's nothing, it's easy. I had a person once I met and they wrote tenders and that was their superpower. And she goes, oh, but they're easy to write. And I'm going, no, they're not. You know, people stress over tenders, and this is something that you can offer that other people will pay for, but also value you in that area, because it's your superpower. And it may be connecting, it may be skills that's associated with your area of education or research. It may be the fact that you've lived in 7 different countries, so you're particularly good. And I know people like that you can drop them in a foreign country. They don't know the language. Even without the help of the internet, they can make connections, make friends, get stuff done. So I think a bit of personal reflection, and I encourage people to do a SWOT analysis. And we do SWOT analysis with businesses, but it's really worthwhile to do it with yourself and to look at your strengths. And personal strengths open you up then to opportunities. The weaknesses that you have, they make you open or vulnerable to threats. Now, we don't need to work on every single weakness we have. Some of those weaknesses we can say, you know what, this is not my area of expertise. I really don't like it. I'm going to outsource that bit. And I think that's okay. Some weaknesses are non-negotiable. Some weaknesses we need to build up into maybe not a strength, but at least be competent in that area. But I feel the strengths, those are our superpowers. And you mentioned passion as well. It's really important that we go, okay, here's my strength, but maybe you're not passionate about that. And that's okay. So you go, that is a strength of mine, but I don't choose to do that. It's like Ash Barty, you know, she's a brilliant tennis player, and that was her passion and that was her strength. But now it's no longer her passion. She wants to do something else. And she made that very brave decision to go, you know what, I'm going to put this aside for a bit. So looking at yourself, doing a SWOT analysis on yourself, going back to your values, you know, I think those of us that were in corporate in the 90s have been scarred by the term values, and we get a bit scary about the term values. But when you look at your own personal values, they are your compass. They're the things that provide your true north. So if you can align your superpowers and your values and your passion, that's a winning trifecta.
So I love the practical tip you've just provided there for those listening, a SWOT analysis. So I think that's a little bit of homework everyone can take away but enjoy that process. I just reflecting on one of my favourite sayings, which you may have heard me say before, but talking about vulnerability. Vulnerability leads to authenticity, and it's authenticity is what leads to greatness. So that's when we put ourselves out there. I want to just go back to this word trust. So trust is built, is it earned, built over time? Can you share your insights? Because I think trust is a huge important element to collaboration. Can you share your thoughts on the word trust?
So my thoughts on trust is it takes a while to develop. This is something that can't be rushed, and you need to show up frequently. And I think, and unfortunately, it's also one of those things that can be damaged very quickly as well. A few years back, I worked with a client that decimated their company's personnel. They said, we're listening to you, we're going to do all these group forums and listen to you. And then they did the exact opposite of what the people wanted. And I didn't work with them through that process, thank goodness, but then they brought me in afterwards and they said, we want to build up trust. And I said, good luck with that, sunshine, because it's not going to happen. And they burnt their people, and people will. I talk about a rapport bridge, and I remember thinking quite a lot about what is rapport. And one of the pillars of rapport is trust. And if you imagine a suspension bridge that's been held up by cables, so if you want to build rapport with somebody, each of those cables represents positive contact. So rapport is built on positive contact plus frequency. And you cannot rush that. And it's like rocking up to SA leaders. You can't just go to one meeting, meet somebody and go, hey, I've got rapport with you. Can I borrow your car? That's not going to work. But if you build up that rapport over frequent attendance and chatting to people and being interested in them. So when we look at that rapport bridge, one of the pillars is trust. And trust is built on reliability. Trust is built on, that being open and authentic and generous. I think one of the other pillars of rapport is generosity. So it's such an interesting topic, and I got to say I'm not an expert on trust, but it's just fascinating to me how we can build it, but then it can also be shattered quite quickly as well. And I feel we've all businesses, we all have clients, we all have customers. Even they may be internal or they may be stakeholders in our business. And that reliability and just doing what you say you're going to do and being honest when things don't turn out as you expect. I had a client years ago, and she was a financial advisor. And during the GFC, her clients lost a lot of money. And I said to her, so how many clients did you lose? And she said none. And the reason why she didn't lose any is because that rapport bridge was so full of struts that, yes, clients were upset when they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but they realised it wasn't her fault. And they were happy to stay with her because of that. So that's what trust does, is trust helps support our rapport bridge.
I love that, the rapport bridge. So positive contact plus frequency is the pathway over the bridge as we build trust. And I think generosity is critical. And I was listening to another podcast earlier this morning, actually, and I love this little tip I heard from Simon Cowell's father taught him at a very early age. When you wake up in the morning, you leave the house, every person you see, put a sign above their head that says, make this person feel like the most important person in the world. And I just love that, because that's about generosity. That is about building that positive contact you talk about. And I thought it was a really nice practical little tip to make the world a better place, actually. Yeah,
and this type of stuff doesn't cost anything. It is an attitude. And I think, too, it comes back to that courage as well. And I've been reading a lot of Brené Brown recently, and, of course, she talks about how courage is very associated with vulnerability, and courage requires vulnerability. And a lot of people go, well, what do you mean by that? And she says, well, think about it. You have to be courageous to ask someone out on a date, and you're actually making yourself vulnerable because you could be rejected. So courage and vulnerability go hand in hand. And sometimes it feels courageous just to smile at somebody and just to say thank you and just to say, hey, that's a really nice hat you've got on today. Because we feel that, what if somebody says, oh, what'd you say that for? So I think that courage and communication, and we need to stretch ourselves to look up, stretch ourselves to try something new, and then keep tweaking it until it fits us.
And I think the fact that awareness is just being aware is almost there to get to the solution. Awareness is the first step, but a very important one. So just having that on the front of your mind every day, or every event you attend, every time you have a conversation with someone, just to have that awareness about being generous and being that positive contact, I think, is important. So thank you for sharing that. SA Leaders, it is the collaboration, the connection, the camaraderie, the loyalty, the cultural piece, which I'm so passionate about in the network. That brain pool, as you shared with me earlier when we were having a coffee. And I'm always fascinated. I walk into those networking events and I'm like a pig in mud, have a great time. But I'm often sharing stories with our members who networking can be confronting. So I'd love to just download from you some tips, some practical tips about what top 3 things you might do when you're walking into a room networking and doing it with confidence.
So many people struggle with it. And it's the people that you wouldn't think would struggle with it. Years ago, I was coaching as CFO and of a really big organisation here in South Australia, and he had this most amazing career. He wasn't your average accountant that worked into a CFO role. He did this and that and everything, and unbelievably interesting man. And I said, so what are you struggling with? He said, well, I'm very self-conscious going to networking. And I said, okay, tell me why. And he said, and he leant in and he said, why would anyone want to talk to me? And I thought, oh my God, why would anyone not want to talk to you? You are fascinating. And I feel it's once again that vulnerability that we're putting ourselves out there and then we might get rejected. So my top tips for people that struggle with networking, and I know you're out there, I know there's a lot of you. My first tip is get there early. Because I know you're procrastinating about this. You're sitting in your car and you're going, I know I should go and I know I'll be fine once I get in there, but this is a bit nerve-wracking. Get there early because it's a lot less freaky when you've got 3 people there than when you've got 300. My second top tip is power up. There's a lot of research now that shows that our psychology is linked with our physiology. So if you're crouched in your car over your phone, step out of the car, pretend you've got a bad back, put your hands on your hips and do some big power pose stretches. So Amy Cuddy's got, if you haven't watched her video on TED Talk, I highly recommend it. Amy Cuddy, How Our Psychology is Affected by Our Physiology. So power up, get there early. The third thing is have a bit of small talk, icebreakers. My favourite icebreaker is, because I'm often going to functions by myself, so my favourite icebreaker is, hey, I'm new here, I don't know anyone, so I thought I'd come and say hello. That's it. And so far, I've yet to have someone go, I don't want to talk to you. Look, it might happen, but it hasn't happened yet. Or you may find a couple of people that are not in an intense conversation. You can rescue a wallflower, go up to them and say, hey, I don't know any here. Let's have a chat and let's walk around together. And the third thing is get curious. Ask questions. So what brought you here today? Oh, what did you think about the speaker? And what about this? And what do you like about that? So small talk could be the speaker, the venue, the food's always a good one. Maybe something in common. If they're wearing fabulous socks, you talk about their socks. And whenever I'm interstate and I'm going to a conference, I always read the daily paper to make sure that I know what's on the headlines and I can say, wow, did you hear about this? And have those little icebreakers. And then lastly, make sure that you know how to answer that question, so what do you do? And there's 3 parts to this. The first part is your title, what is it you do? Something that we can connect with. The second part is your passion piece, why you do it. And the third, if you can, make it relevant to them. So I remember meeting an accountant once and I said, so what line of work are you in? She goes, I'm just an accountant. And I got to tell you, Natasha, that something inside of me died because I thought I don't want to speak to just an accountant. And so I thought I might do a little bit of stealth coaching here. And I said, no, I don't. I think you're more than that. And she said, am I? And I said, yeah, I think you are. And I said, what type of accounting do you do? And she said, I do tax accounting. I said, but this is really good. And she said, why? I said, because there's only 2 things that's relevant to everyone, and that's death and taxes, and you've got one of them. And she said, okay then. And I said, are you any good at it? And she goes, I am. I said, how come? She said, well, just the other day I got a client an extra $1,000 in their tax return that they weren't expecting. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is a woman I need to speak with now. So her grab turned into, I'm just an accountant, to I'm an accountant, my name's Sue, I'm an accountant with H&R Block, and my superpower is I can take that box of receipts that's shoved under your bed, process it all, and get a tax return into your account within 7 working days. Just last week, I got a client an extra $1,000 they weren't expecting. So that's this is me, this is what I do, here's my passion piece, and here's how it's relevant to you. So, think of your grab. I call it your grab because you've got 10 seconds really to get across what it is you do. So think of your grab before you go to a networking event. And put on your Superman or Superwoman undies. I know it's tough, but it will get easier the more you do. And if all of that fails, just think, what would Sharon do?
Fantastic. Thank you. And like I said, I love the energy that comes with Sharon. So I really appreciate you sharing your tips and insights today. At SA Leaders, we are all about collaboration and community. If you're curious to know more about how we help businesses and leaders just like you scale and grow beyond their glass ceilings, then visit our website at www.saleaders.com.au. And please don't forget to subscribe, share this podcast with your network, and write a review if you really enjoyed it. This has been an Audiosity production. I'm Natasha Milani. I look forward to chatting with you next time. Happy connecting.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.